Hi, I'm Mike. This is the second video that I wanted to create about the counseling process that I'm using. The first process was how to minimize anxiety, depression, stress, loneliness, anger, uh, and get back to your equilibrium. So people have a certain equilibrium of where they are, and then when things happen, adversities happen, they fall below it, and they get depressed or anxious or angry, stressed. But the removal of depression and anxiety and stress does not necessarily create happiness, joy, optimism, and positivity. That's an addition. Now, it is true in some people's cases that their normal baseline is happy. But for most people, it may not be. It may be more neutral. And so following CBT, using cognitive behavioral and REBT and choice theory and positive psychology, we can help people deal with the depression and anxiety, challenging the cognitive distortions, the self-defeating beliefs, developing a more optimistic explanatory style, and getting your needs met. But if you've done that and you're back to baseline, and your baseline is more neutral, it's not happy, how can you then increase happiness? That's what this video is going to be on. And it's based on the ideas of Martin Seligman. So Marty Seligman wrote several books: Learned Optimism, The Optimistic Child, and Authentic Happiness, among others, more recent ones. And today's going to be the idea of the happiness, developing authentic happiness. Now, if you imagine the procedure being kind of like a T, you have a T and then the line down the middle, and on one side is the past. So you got the past, the present, and the future. Right? And the present is the middle of the T, where the line going down is. So on one side, you have the past, and coming to terms with the past, having some acceptance, some closure. There are techniques that Dr. Seligman advises for dealing with past challenges and issues and upset. This includes forgiveness, developing some forgiveness for yourself, for other people. It also includes, again, some kind of an acceptance with it and a sense of gratitude for what your past has given you and helped contribute to the kind of person you are. So there are a number of techniques to kind of clean up the past a little bit and make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable. Then there's the future. So some future, that's the other end of the T, right? And that's basically the optimism. Looking at things in a more optimistic, positive way, developing resilience to some of the adversities of life. And that is, there's some techniques that we've done, and that's traditional CBT, REBT as well. But the big focus for Dr. Seligman for happiness is the present. And that's why it's the line down, because there's 3 steps that he has for increasing positivity and happiness in the present. The first level is living what he calls the pleasant life. Okay? And basically the pleasant life is to maximize the pleasures, the felt sensory pleasures that people have. So for example, enjoying a nice dinner, a hot shower, a warm bath, going for a walk, exercising, listening to music, appreciating art, getting a massage, being intimate with a partner. These are felt experiences. They're sensory. And they're relatively fleeting. They don't last very long, although there are some techniques that you can use to increase them. You can engage in, one technique is called savoring. You really savor the moment, and you do it with intention and being very present and in the moment. But by nature, they're not very deep. When you're having them, they're enjoyable, but they don't tend to last very long. And this is what he calls living the pleasant life. When you maximize these pleasures, when you kind of can pepper your day with as many of these pleasures as possible, you're living the pleasant life. The second, and probably the deepest, is the good life. And the good life is by utilizing each person's signature character strengths and virtues. Now, Dr. Seligman has an assessment to determine what a person's character strengths are. And he looks at the top 5. And character strengths are things like social intelligence, bravery, creativity, curiosity about the world, kindness and generosity, justice and fairness and equity. There's 24 different character traits. And these are kind of the values that people have. And there's an assessment that you can look at. If you look at Martin Seligman and Authentic Happiness and Assessments, he calls it the VIA, Values in Action, Survey of Character Strengths. And if you look it up, there's a website through the University of Pennsylvania where he's collecting data. It's a free website. You have to register just because he's trying to collect some data, but it's free. And it'll give you your top 5 character strengths. I think it rates all of them, but the top 5 are the ones that you want to focus on. And by identifying your top core strengths, these are so central to who you are as a person. You wouldn't be who you are without them. None of us would be. And therefore, the failure to operationalize them, to utilize them, to make them concrete, is really to deny and suppress key parts of who we are as people. And how can you be happy if you do that? Right? So his goal is to identify those core character strengths and then use them as often as possible. Now, the interesting thing about these is these are so, when you do these, you're so involved in them that you actually don't feel happy at the time. These are the kind of things where you're doing something and you lose track of time. And 5 hours later, you say, well, where did the time go? I can't believe. You feel good after the fact. But in the moment, you're not actually feeling anything at all. You're just so focused. You're in the flow. You're in the zone. You're kind of in the moment that you don't even realize it. So there's actually an absence of felt emotion, unlike the pleasures. But the more you can utilize these character strengths, the happier and better you'll be. Now, the problem is, how do you do that, right? How do you operationalize humility? That's one of the character strengths. How do you use that, humility, or gratitude? How do you concretize gratitude? So one of the tricks and one of the keys is to figuring out how to utilize your character strengths in as many ways as you possibly can. It's more difficult. It's easier to do the pleasures. And that's why if you can do the pleasures and kind of pepper the pleasures in between these character strengths, the better. But if you can do that, you'll be living the good life. And then the final one is the meaningful life. Right? And that's the application of your character strengths to something greater than yourself. It could be family and friends. It could be religion. It could be the environment, maybe being involved in political causes or being some kind of activist. But it's not just doing those things. It's not just being involved in a charity, working at a soup kitchen. It's using your character strengths in that activity. So it's not the activity itself, not that that's bad, but it's using your character strengths in that activity. And if you do that, you're living the meaningful life. And so you have the pleasant life, the good life, and the meaningful life. And if you do all 3, you're said to be living a full life. So again, you've got the T, you've got the past that you want to wrap up and deal with. You've got the future you want to guard against adversity and problems. And then you've got the present, and down the line of the present, there's the pleasures, the good life, and the meaningful life. And to do all of them is to live a full life. And this will add happiness, optimism, joy, and positivity to your life. It won't just be removing depression, anxiety, stress, anger, loneliness. It'll be adding happiness and joy and optimism and positivity. So this is the second part of the 2 ways that I work with people to remove the depression, anxiety, stress as best we can using CBT and reality therapy and positive psychology, and then to get a person back up to equilibrium. And then from there, take the next step using positive psychology to increase happiness, joy, optimism, positivity. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.